Tonight on The Breakdown, it's quarterfinals time and 4 Kiwi teams made it in from a crazy weekend of rugby. We look at how they got there. Also tonight, it's Volunteer Week and we kick off our grassroots Local Heroes series from Mossburn. All ahead with Jeff, Ali, Cully, Batesy and Steph. It's The Breakdown.
Hello and welcome to The Breakdown. We are finally there. We have found the top 8 teams of Super Rugby. The quarterfinals are just around the corner. They kick off on Friday night in Christchurch. We shouldn't forget as well, in just 2 weeks' time, we see the first All Black squad in 2019. Here's my team tonight. You heard it. Ali, Batesy, Cully, Steph, not too far away. My team's in the playoffs. Cully, is your team in the playoffs?
Yeah, we just made it, I think.
You just got through.
Yeah.
Batesy, for you?
Oh, the Chiefs are in there.
And Ali, what's happening?
We're looking forward to next year. We're pre-planning. We're looking good so far. We need about half a team, a few results.
So 220 already, obviously. You're not counting your 1 year with the Crusaders and Steph as well.
Crusader, man.
I know you've got your year with the Crusaders, but the playoffs, they're here. They're not too far away. Like I said, some great matchups for New Zealand teams in action this weekend. Let's go to our Crusaders. Steph, how happy are you? Crusaders a week off, you know, preparing for the semis.
Oh, it's all good news for us. Yeah, so there's not a lot of news this week in New Zealand rugby, but there is a bit of movement in the international scene. Check it out.
In news this week, Ruan Pienaar has agreed to end his contract early with Montpellier and has been linked to return to Super Rugby with the Sharks. Malcolm Marx has re-signed with South Africa Rugby until 2021. The deal will feature a sabbatical post-Rugby World Cup. Tola Latu has been found guilty of drink driving and falling asleep at the wheel. He has been fined $1,300 and has had his driver's licence disqualified. And ex-Wallabies assistant coach Stephen Larkin has been announced as the new head coach of Munster.
And if you follow the top 14 French comp, you'll know that Jerome Kaino's Toulouse came out on top. And Jerome Kaino also won huge praise after refusing to be involved in the initial trophy presentation, insisting that Julien Marchand, who was the original Toulouse captain who got injured earlier on in the season, took that honour instead. And we also have an update from our Sky Sports Super Rugby Superstars winner, Nakia Williams. And Nakia got to have a meet and greet at Chiefs HQ on Friday last week. And not only that, Nakia also got an awesome gear bag full of merch, which included tickets to the All Blacks versus Tonga game, 4 signed Chiefs jerseys, a $500 All Blacks shop voucher, and 2020 Chiefs season memberships for the whole family. Congratulations again, Nakia. That's an awesome prize pack you walked away with, and I hope you enjoyed the experience. And on a final note, the Baby Blacks lost to Wales in the Under-20 Championship, so they will now play off for 7th and 8th against Ireland. So that's not a great result.
Not a great result, Steph, because you start thinking about the 44 players that are heading offshore in Super Rugby. You start looking at that next tier. Are we surprised by this result? It will be our worst result, gents, in a World Championship for the 20s. Concerning?
It's concerning, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't expect them to be that far down, you know. But in saying that, I don't know, just because the team hasn't performed well doesn't necessarily mean there's not good cattle, there's not good players in there, you know. The mix might be wrong.
Let's talk about that, because the purpose of that whole program has always been about developing players, and you've been part of it, and you're seeing that it's not just about the 25 or 30 who go away to World Championship. There's another 25 on top of that, Cully. So in the end, isn't this a stepping stone in terms of these guys getting an opportunity to learn and understand what it takes to be a professional?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's tough. I think that's probably the key for young guys coming through now, is learning the professional, the week in, week out of what it takes, you know, the training and the games and the training and the games. So these guys are going to filter through Mitre 10 Cup coming up. So, I mean, they're going to go through their different promises, and I'm sure this ain't going to dampen their spirits, I don't think.
I don't think it's a big deal for me. I look at it as a stepping stone, and I don't read too much into our performances at that level. And the fact, as long as we continue to build that depth across the board, yes, we'd like to win it. It's a nice trophy to have, Ali, but not the be-all and end-all.
No, and I think, you know, moments like this for some of those players will be quite fundamental in their career going forward. They'll sit and they'll think, well, hey, this is what we did wrong. Maybe we took it for granted, whatever. Maybe some guys sit there and say, look, it's not for me. This is not what I want to do. And so, you know, yes, disappointing that we didn't get the result, but I still think there's a lot to gain out of things like this.
You could also say, like you've almost touched on there, you could say, well, what I've been doing is actually not going to be good enough going forward. So you talk about a learning experience, that's the kind of learning that you get.
And we shouldn't forget, though, as well, that's every year they're trying to produce these groups of players, and they do at times go in cycles, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So interesting to see how these players, a number of these players, step up. There's plenty of talent there. Well, there's plenty of talent there. There's plenty of talent in Super Rugby. And what a weekend it was. A couple of weeks ago, we were thinking whether or not we would have just 2 teams in the Super Rugby quarterfinals here in New Zealand. We managed to find a way to get 4. And let's talk about and start from the weekend, because it started on Friday. It was the Highlanders and Chiefs that were in action. The Highlanders had to put the pressure on first, then the Chiefs. I was down at Invercargill, and the first 40 minutes was outstanding. The second 40 look from both teams was a little bit up and down. Were we surprised at the dominant performance put on down in the Deep South? Cully, for you?
No. I mean, the thing with the Highlanders, and to a certain extent the Waratahs knew what they had to do, but for whatever reason they rested some of their big boys. But the Highlanders knew they had to get the bonus point. It was pretty clear cut, and they had to sit and wait until the end of the weekend. But I mean, I'm wrapped for them down in Invercargill.
Good crowd on hand.
And it's pretty cool. Hopefully that Bender might get another crack this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things. You look at the Highlanders' performance, you say, OK, how good was it? And then you look at the Waratahs and you say, well, how good was that? And so I think it's a bit of a mix there. I think the Highlanders did what they needed to do. I think they created and gave themselves opportunities to get those bonus points. They knew what they had to do. And then I think the Waratahs came basically sitting, you know, game up.
I'll ask you this, Batesy. Yeah. They're going to play in Christchurch now, and the conditions in Invercargill, it was cold, it had been wet, it had been raining, but not during the conditions for the game. Does that help them? Because all of a sudden we saw a different kicking game from them, something that was vastly different from what they'd done in the stadium in Dunedin. Does that help them prepare? Not in terms of the opposition, but in terms of a game plan to take to Christchurch.
Yeah, because you've got to remember that it would have been dewy down there in Invercargill, the same as going to be dewy in Christchurch. So things just change a little bit about how they go about their game, how they play their game. And also, you know, when you come up against the Crusaders, they're going to bring a different style of game as well. But one thing I do enjoy is you've got to remember they had Thompson and Walden back in the midfield, and they haven't had that combination back a lot this year. And those two together go really well, and they sort of help create things for their outside backs, because they do have good outside backs with the likes of Lee and hopefully, as you said, Ben Smith this weekend.
And Waisaki in a holo. So you talk about a forward pack as well. I look at the depth they've got there. You talk about momentum, and they'll go to Christchurch knowing the fact that all of a sudden there's a lot of, I suppose, a little bit of added emotion, remembering that their last game was cancelled with the tragic events that happened in Christchurch. They'll look forward to this challenge of heading away, Ali.
If you're the CEO of the Highlanders, you say this is perfect planning, because, I mean, playing in Invercargill gives you that perfect run into going into Christchurch. And, you know, the Highlanders are hitting their straps at the right time, and the right people are hitting their straps. You know, I look at Liam Squire and the likes. These guys are playing some good rugby, standing up.
We'll talk about the Chiefs in a moment, though. Well, let's talk about the 2 performances, though, from the Australian teams, the Rebels and the Waratahs. The Rebels up against the Chiefs were poor. Given the fact that their season was on the line, they've got quality players. Had they just come to the end of it, or was this more about the Chiefs' performance?
Bit of both for me. Oh, I'd say the Chiefs were very good, but we'll go on the Rebels first. Well, I thought the Rebels were really poor, and unfortunately, they almost in the first half, they gave the Chiefs 2, 3, maybe even 4 tries. I think it was 3 tries. They gave them to, and then the Chiefs got on the roll, and they couldn't catch them, could they? And that's the way it was.
It's just, I mean, it's mental pressure there, because the tackling was woeful. And, I mean, if you're not making your first up tackles initially, you can get momentum. And if you give a Chiefs side momentum, they'll capitalise on it all day. So, you know, maybe their heads are somewhere else, the Australians.
Well, the Australians, 4 of those sides, Kelly, they get the next 3 weeks off. It's only the Brumbies that are through to the playoffs. Are there concerning and worrying sides for them if you start looking at not just those two performances, the Reds down second to last in the table?
Oh, well, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I was watching the Australian rugby show and Stephen Hoyles was saying exactly that. It's almost they need to go back to 3 teams. And I think you could see that. They were tired. It started the week before with the Rebels when they got pumped by the Crusaders. And then it just flowed on. And like they're international players, some of those Rebels players in that back line.
I'll tell you who I spoke to was Adam Ashley Cooper after the game. And he went offshore and played overseas, played in Europe and played in Japan, I think, as well. And he couldn't believe and forgotten how challenging Super Rugby was. He was spent. He didn't have particularly a strong game in Invercargill, but he said he was absolutely fatigued, buggered at this point of the season. So for a team or a country that's struggling, maybe it's time to look at that option and go back to 3 more teams, just 3 teams.
Goldie, the time is perfect for New Zealand rugby to pounce on Australian rugby, capture them, and make a huge success out of it. That's just a statement, mate. We need to go and get their crowds, we need to go and get their talent pool, and we need to nurture it under the All Black New Zealand umbrella, create a mega competition just within us.
I love your imagination. You bring it here every week.
It's going to work. We've just got to be brave. We can go and capture them. Then we've got a bigger audience, which then can commercialise our game more.
Isn't our Prime Minister their preferred Prime Minister anyway?
Exactly. We can take over the whole country.
It's just do the whole lot.
Let's do it right now.
Let's start with the Aussie 20s. We'll take them because they're in the final. So
exactly. There you go. I'm talking right now.
They're not so bad.
Hey,
yeah, they're not locked in other words. They're not locked in.
Mix black and yellow together and what it makes black still.
Let's get back on track here. Let's get back on track. You're always managed to take us somewhere else. But let's talk about the Chiefs. Let's talk about their performance and the way that they played in that game. There's no substitute for the speed and the speed they have out there and the way that they played. And I think everyone is starting to agree they're incredibly dangerous. We'll leave you for a moment, Batesy, because you're always going to think this. But, Kelly, I really like what I saw out of this team.
I was really happy for them. Once again, they knew what they had to do and they did it. Man, the speed. I love Brad Weber's playing awesome. Anton Leonard-Brown's top of his game. You know, Sam Cane, is great to see him back. Retallick. So all their pieces are coming together at the right time of the season.
Yeah. If we look at the start of their season, they were 4-0, and I was sitting on this couch saying they had it. And now you can see what it means to be a Chiefs man, what it means, and basically you'll be able to elaborate a lot more than us, but there's something in the formula that works, and that game, to me, showed how well they can bounce back and produce a performance when they need to.
Yeah, I think definitely does help what you guys have talked about. They've got people coming back, and for me, a guy that came back a few weeks ago now, Atu Moli, he was massive, because you've got to remember, when they're having all those problems, their scrum was creaking and cracking as well.
Angus Tarvale was having to play on the loose head, wasn't he? So all of a sudden they've got some depth on the tight head. And but it seems to me, though, that they've continued to build the way that they play the game. And I heard Sam Cane do an interview and he said, oh, look, we were just leaking tries. Defensively, we were just poor. We were giving away opportunities, making errors and letting the opposition score, because they've got the talent, haven't they? They've got the attacking ability. And when they lost Damien McKenzie, they needed to find something, and they've found it from somewhere.
And I think that's a key point. They're very good for turnovers. If you watch that Rebel games, you would have seen they scored a lot of tries from turnovers, different types of turnovers. But who ran that cutter for them? It was Damien McKenzie. It more or less was, OK, we get a turnover, we'll chuck it to Damien McKenzie and he'll make something happen. Then they took Damien McKenzie out and they almost got lost for a few weeks of what they did with turnover ball. And they've had to reinvent themselves, and that's why guys like Jack Debrasini has become real crucial to what they do.
Yeah, so the performance of them is strong. So then you shift it and you look at the other teams that are in the playoffs that I want to talk about, the Jaguares quickly and the Brumbies, OK? Are we underestimating the Brumbies, and are we overhyping the Jaguares? Because we've been on them on this show for a long time now.
You have.
I have been.
You have, yeah.
But for good reason, because the way they've played the game. But if you look at the young guys, they did the job against the Sunwolves, absolutely thrashed them. They've got their senior players to come back in. But I look at those two teams briefly. I mean, are we underestimating the Brumbies to start with?
Yeah. Well, I think you've got to look at it in 2 ways, Goldie. You've got the flair of the Jaguares. Is it going to carry through to playoffs? Then you've got the boredom and the...
The line-out drive. And I'm surprised you're saying boredom, because it's a line-out drive.
But it's just so painful to watch.
In Canberra.
It's just so painful. So is the pain and the boredom going to win over the flair?
Hard place to go and play, though, right?
Very hard place to play.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't underestimate them. I think boring or whatever. If that's winning rugby,
They're playing the Sharks, right?
then
Yeah, they play pretty exciting stuff too.
So that's a line-out drive and a half that we're watching, Batesy.
Well, at the end of the day, if you're supporting a team, yeah, you'd like them to score wicked tries like the Canes do, but if they score 5 driving maul tries and win, well, who cares?
Yeah.
If I'm supporting that team, who cares?
Well,
Support the
I
other
would care,
team.
mate. I
you
wouldn't
know?
go to Canberra and watch 5 driving mauls.
I'd rather go to Canberra and watch my team win than go to Canberra and watch my team lose.
See,
and
I
play
prefer to
exciting.
go to Eden Park and have a great, entertaining match. Can't guarantee we'll win, but it's still just a hell of a lot of fun.
Well, at times conceding the odd line-out drive.
Oh,
But that's
look,
okay.
Just move
That's
on,
moving
mate.
on
Just
and moving on and
concentrate
doing
on
it
the
quickly.
4 winning teams.
All right, there was another game on the weekend. Of course, that was down in Wellington. It was you'd have to say, an under-strength Hurricanes team playing against a Blues team. Let's focus on the Hurricanes. Let's talk about them and where they're at, where they've got to. And this performance, actually, for a start, let's talk about this, because there was actually nothing riding on it for them. They weren't that great in the first half, Cully. You were there. Something happened in half-time. John Plumtree expected more. And
yeah, I mean, I seen Plums at the start of the game, and he was pretty much, well, I don't know how this is going to go, because I mean, there was 3 20-year-olds or 4 20-year-olds in that back line. And then, yeah, I mean, talking to Colesy, they got a bit of a wind-up at half-time, and I mean, I don't know where the Blues went, but I mean, they were favourites, and I was really happy for, guys like Tuala and Umanga Jensen, who really stood up, and Matty Proctor's leaving next year or into this year, so the future's bright for this. It was a young Hurricane side.
they did it once again, Batesy, without Bowden Barrett, no Geordie Barrett, the resting players. So does this actually help them as they prepare for their quarterfinal in any way?
For 2 reasons, I think it helps. If you quarter-final, it does help them a little bit. In the future, when do you get to play an actual Super Rugby game, not a pre-season game, a Super Rugby game as a young fella, and a whole lot together. So you think about the experience over the next couple of years. But one thing that's been real interesting for me, what Plumtree has done, is he's tried to bring his young guys in and give them game time, because he has got quite a young squad. So what that does do is now it gives these young guys that have had a start or played throughout the year, gives them genuine confidence that, hey, I believe I actually belong in this arena. So when they get chucked out there and maybe in a couple of weeks against the Crusaders, they believe they're good enough to be there.
And it gives you a whole lot of confidence they're doing the right things, Ali.
Yeah, they're winning, aren't they? They've found ways to win even when it hasn't been that attractive.
Even if it's not pretty, they're winning.
Exactly. They've found contradict myself the whole time, don't I? But they have found ways to win, and as you said, Batesy, it creates a culture in a team that they can keep doing it and keep doing it. And you sit there and you say, are the Hurricanes dangerous in playoff footy? Mate, they're always dangerous in playoff footy, aren't they? They can do anything. And so to me, they've timed it quite nicely in terms of how they're doing.
Can we explain the Blues' performance in that game? Is it easy to explain? Look, they looked extremely tired in the second half. They fell off a cliff to me, Kelly. The fact that they had the game in complete control. It's not that they were completely dominant in the first half. They'd just taken a few of their opportunities.
Oh, man, frustrating. I mean, I guess, they were done, because you see Milani Nano at one stage chasing across the field, and he had nothing in the tank, and Rico got back and saved the day. But I don't know, there was just little things, like passing to the invisible man. I think at the end they were chasing the game, and Rudu came around and did the backflip, and there was like nobody there, and that just summed up, I think, to me, how their season's gone. Yeah. It's not like they do it on purpose or they drop the ball on purpose, and you could see the frustration in Leon in the box. Like, it was just like...
I said this last year, and I don't want to keep saying it, but are results like this a good way, Ali, for them to address their issues? We talked about leadership already. The fact is when you get a performance like this, do you start really asking the hard questions?
Yeah, I think every year you've got to ask the hard questions with the Blues. I mean, you look at the catchment pool they've got, you look at the ability. I mean, we look at some of those games during the year. They won, and they won some outstanding matches and played extremely well. But why are they dropping off the following week? Or why are they so sporadic in terms of how they're performing? That, to me, is the real concern. So this, as you say, you've got to go, and in the All Blacks you had this saying, go bone deep. You really got to get down under the skin, under the whole facade of it. What is the issue with Blues rugby and Blues personnel? Yeah. And you're in there now, Bates. Yeah, mate, what's your problem, mate? Sort it out.
I'll give you one thing that I know, and I know that Leon McDonald and I know that Tom Coventry are good coaches.
Yes.
So if anyone can turn it around, they're the men to have. Also, you've got to remember that Leon picked this team up very late, and you can, whether it's a nice thing to say or not, they probably don't have the squad that they want. They didn't choose that squad. So those two and their coaching staff are going to work hard, and if there's players available, they will get them in and they will be better next year. I know that because I know those two men will want to be better.
And statistically, in a number of areas, they've actually improved. They've actually been a lot better, but it hasn't resulted in wins. And remembering as well, there are a couple of games they could quite easily have won, had a couple of kicks gone over. They're now out of the playoffs, though. So in 2 weeks' time, there's an all-black team that's going to be selected on the 2nd of July. How damaging for any of the Blues players that they are now out of sight? Does that mean out of mind, Kelly?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's probably guys on the teetering on the there, and I say the selectors would have been watching. They were there in the weekend, obviously, watching that riveting game down in Wellington. So yeah, I mean, out of sight, out of mind. I mean, has some of them played their way out? I'm not too sure, but.
Well, they won't get their play to play their way back in.
No.
And is that a concern? Let's talk about a number of these guys. Patrick Tuipulotu had a big season. Dalton Papali'i starting to find some really good form. Akira Ioane. I mean, you're talking about all of those players. I mean, reality, those guys now, Akira Ioane, they miss opportunities, Batesy, to impress under the pressure of playoff rugby.
Yeah, I think obviously, you know, if you stand up in a playoff game, it means a lot more. But I think those guys there, the three that you've named, and you put Ma in there as well, they've had a lot of football. They've had a lot of football, so they know what they're going to bring. I think the guys that are really the concern, and I know there's been comments made about them, are guys like Sonny, who hasn't played a lot of football, Karl Tuanokuafi, he could do with some more football, and guys like that are the guys that may be out of sight, out of mind, and that's the concern for them.
Yeah. I get concerned for them because, like you say, Ma's been very good. But once again, same thing. The number of minutes that he's had to play, that he's had to push through, you know, is it a time to freshen up? And you expect them to maybe get an opportunity?
Yeah, look, I'll make a JK statement here.
Just because he's not here?
Just because he's not here. The All Black selectors will already have their team. And in the playoffs, it will be a limit. It will be a situation where I know who I want, but you've proven to me that I can't leave you out. So I think a lot of those Blues players are going to fall away there. The two guys concerned for me are Sonny and Ma. I think the others are, were never probably in the big picture. So I think it's going to hurt those two players. So,
or are they at the moment, like you say, are they looking at players like the likes of Dane Coles? They're looking at players who are getting back into getting rugby. They're looking at all of those guys and going, you know what? You know, this is an opportunity to make sure, look, just to see Sonny out there. Was that what they were there on the weekend? Okay, some guys they just wanted to see get some time.
Well, I think personally it's that they're smart enough to know it's not necessarily how the team's going. Like the Blues have a bad year, it's more to the individual. So they'll be watching the individuals and they'll be watching certain things that they need to see out of that individual. So, yeah, I mean, I guess backtracking on what, it may hurt them, but it may not because they might have showed enough individually, but not as a team.
Did we like what we saw from Sonny just quickly before we go to the break?
Yeah, I think he was good. Yeah, I thought he was good. He touched the class, wasn't completely dominant, but I thought he was good.
Good to get some minutes under his belt, you know. And you get the sense,
mate. He had to.
So we like to see him now. There's no games for him to play. Go back to club football, or because that's a big question mark.
Yeah,
for him it is because he's facing injuries. He's facing: do I repair my body? Do I give it extra time, or do I go back and try and get some rugby?
What's Counties doing at the moment? Are they playing pre-season? They must be playing pre-season. That's better than club rugby, you know.
Yep. Get something on the go. I think it's great to see him out there. Well, of course, there are now just 8 teams in Super Rugby. The quality has got their opportunity maybe to go on and win a title. Let's have a look at the very best of all of those teams as we approach this weekend's quarterfinals.
Kick it straight to a Highlanders player, and back they come. Thompson now sets off across field, and now straightens. He's got straight through the middle of them. Well, it was a long time coming, but in the last minute of the game, they get their sole try of the second half.
And Nankerville's made an impact. Straight on the field. Alain Malo wants it, gets it, steps. Alain Malo! Captain Weber is in!
The Storm is screaming for extra men over in defence on that far side. Here's Reno Smith and Lucanio. Oh, my word, they've stolen it at the deck.
Now the Bok gets it away, and the pass goes as far as Hendricks. Races on. Hendricks, oh, beautifully done. Cornell Hendricks.
The Hurricanes through Artie Savia have stolen this, and off goes TJ Perenara, looking for support, pops it off the boat to Geordie Barrett. Geordie Barrett chased by Leonard Brown, got his pass away for Savia, who started it all. Artie Savia, what a try that is.
Comes back for Powell and he gives it to Leolefano on the short side. Muirhead is outside him. Leolefano gets it back to Andy Muirhead now. Stevenson can't make the tackle. The inside ball, who wants it? It's been picked up by Leolefano. And over the top it goes, and it is a try to the Brumbies!
Condon looked up and saw open real estate now. Cavelli chasing some support now. Crossfield kicking, looking for the check in the in-goal try. Honguares.
Havili across to Gucci. They got the call because there's space available on the right. Moonga, Reese. Sevu Reese, the kick ahead. And, oh yeah, bounces too. He's got it. Oh, he's got another one. He's got another one. Magic.
Coming up, it's Volunteer Week and we kick off our Grassroots Local Heroes series from Mossburn in the Deep South.
Yes, welcome back. It is 2019 National Volunteer Week. Over 25,000 volunteers across our great game, whether they're administrators, coaches, referees, whatever they are, and what a fantastic job they do. It's time now for us to get in touch with the Grassroots game. We're starting a series called Local Heroes. It's time now for us to head down south to Mossburn.
A usual day for me on a Saturday is get up in the morning, pack the ute, and so we've got all the playing gear, jackets, and once sort of 11:30, 12 o'clock comes, then I leave. Mossburn Rugby Club is an hour and a half out of north of Invercargill. Long established rugby club coming up to its 100th centennial next year. It's a very community organised club. People involved are basically all locals apart from probably myself and that. And how did I get involved? Well, I've always been interested in team and medic stuff and first aid and that sort of thing with the jobs that I've done over the past years. I actually asked 3 clubs. Mossburn was one of them, Central Pirates and Midlands were the other ones, and Mossburn were the only ones that come back to me and said, yeah, they'd take someone on to do the strapping and first aid and that for them. So that was back in 2004 and I've been with the club ever since. Do you want the match balls? 3 sitting down there just in the corner there.
Cheryl's a very caring person. She's very determined and very bossy. If she doesn't get her own way, she certainly tells us what's what, which is great.
Stinky, are you going to be long? Well, hurry up then.
Well, she's sort of really the heart and soul. You know, she's here early, tapes the boys up on Saturdays. I mean, I'm still playing and she's managed to hold me together for the last God knows how many years. Yeah, we couldn't do without her.
Around here, like, it's all about volunteers. We've got no one other than volunteers, and if we didn't have them, we didn't have a rugby club. And that's what we need to go forward. And we seem to have great people like her in our club that are, good to be here every week for us. That's awesome.
The involvement for the rugby club for the community would be, it just keeps everyone together. That gives them, the community, something to come and look forward to on Saturdays. And they just, it's good when the boys get the community backing and that, and the boys back the community as well. When the game starts, my role is basically I'll just walk up and down with the play and keep an eye on what's going on. Clean it up, clean it up. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Hold the ball. Hold him. And if I see someone go down or someone yells out to me that someone's not right, I'll go out to them and see what the problem is. And if I need to bring them off, I'll bring them off. and that if I don't think they're right to continue play, I'll tell the ref. Just take your time. You still feeling it a bit? Was it just a bit sore?
The big pitch in the game,
Right there. Today everything went good. I just had the odd one or two. I had to just go out and check, just the wee niggles, but nothing major in that. So the boys are really firing fit. And next week we've got against Pioneer, which are top of the competition. So the boys will be out fizzing for that as well.
Yeah, we never underestimate what our volunteers do across the country. We're involved in the game with our kids. Ali, you coach netball, which I hear is a storming start to the
Bayfield
season.
Ladybugs, they're Ladybirds, they're 5-0.
Your own team, you got the name wrong.
They're crushing it.
They're crushing it.
They can get from one side of the field all the way down to the other by
It's called a court. It's called a court, mate.
Well, look,
we're all there, right?
I'm completely out of my depth.
And we know what it takes, and they're such an important part of our game, Kelly.
Yeah, well, the number of coaches and the people that have to put the flags out at 5:30 in the morning, like in our club, Paraparumu, they're out there and posting it at Facebook. And
You're not there?
No, I'm not there. I'm getting my kids ready.
Okay.
Yeah, breakfast and clean mouth guards and boots and that, getting ready to go.
Cleaning their clubs, mate. You're cleaning their golf clubs.
But Batesy, we see it across all levels, don't we?
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely outstanding, the work that the volunteers do. And you've mentioned it, they put the flags around that. But not only that, you've got to remember the volunteers organise the kit at the start of the year. They've got to organise stuff like that. They organise the weigh-ins and everything. So it's really, as I said, they always say, oh, can't be done without you. But it actually can't, so you can't pay them enough kudos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Backbone of our culture, isn't it?
Yep.
The volunteers and our sport holding communities, they're unbelievable. I mean, especially when you're there and you see it at the coalface, they're pretty special humans.
That's what makes our game great in New Zealand. Let's talk about our 4 franchises that are in the playoffs this year. And let's talk about each franchise and what we think sets them apart and why they are having success. And it's long success that it seems to be. Let's start with, I think, probably one of the underdog teams this year who have fought their way into it, and it's the Chiefs. Let's look at them. Let's start with you, Batesy. You've been in their environment before as a player, but what have they managed to build there, and where has their continued success come from?
I suppose if you take it right back to when Dave Rennie came in, he had a complete clean-out, didn't he? He cleaned a whole lot of the things. They said, this is not the way we're going to do it, and have a clean-out, and they started a story to what the Chiefs are and what they believe in and who they stand for and who they represent. And that, to me, has carried on, you know. So players and coaches may have come and gone, but that legacy through guys like Liam Messon has been passed down. You can see that in the way that they play, just the resilience that they have.
And Wayne Smith was a big part of that, wasn't he? And you've had a lot to do with Smithy, as have I. And when he gets into something and sinks his teeth into it, he can bring the players along for the ride.
Yeah. My view on Wayne Smith is he creates a purpose. So he would have gone in there and he would have said, right, what is the purpose and what is the reason and what is the meaning of being a chief? And we see it now. I mean, you know, the word chief mana just keeps coming out. People say, well, it doesn't just happen over one season. These things don't happen over one season. They keep getting drilled into people. They keep supporters, players, coaching staff, also administration. And, you know, the Chiefs have gone from a side which was maybe the little brother or so of the Auckland to now being a dominant force in Super Rugby. And the talent they're producing, they're taking talent that we don't potentially see as limelight, and they create a magical team.
And Kelly, what they find a way to do is get the best out of unexpected talent. And they've done it for this season. They did it particularly when the season was on the line, when they were in Fiji. They've got a lot of young guys having to step up. A guy like Peter Gus Sowakula had very limited opportunities, but then he gets an opportunity at this level to find a way to not only win it, but keep themselves alive. Jesse Perite as well. I mean, their ability to get the best out of everybody.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of hunger. I mean, that game with Fiji was probably the game of the year for me, watching it, and they were down. And, you know, people talk about the process and all that, but they just have a massive belief in what they do and what they're about and work their way back into that game. And I listened to Sam Cane after that game, and there was no panic. Everybody was on the same page. And I think you said before, Bates, about Sam Cane. If he looks at you or he's annoyed with it, he'll tell you whether you're a good mate or not. And I think that's what you need. You need to... They've got leaders in that team, which are, you know, Sam, Brodie. They lead from the front and they go and guys follow them. And I love that.
And they've always recruited well, Batesy.
Yeah, they have, and they pick guys out that they really think they need. They don't necessarily take everyone, although they do take a fair few. And I know we've talked about the New Zealand 20 side, and they haven't done that well. But in that New Zealand 20 sides, I mean, these figures are not 100% accurate, but they've got about 14 members in that from the Chiefs region. You know, you've got to remember Taranaki's in there too. So you've got the Naki, you've got the Bay, you've got Counties, and you've got Waikato. So you've got to, even though that team hasn't done that, yeah, the Bay, yeah.
Easy.
And also you think that team hasn't done that well, but they've got a nucleus of guys coming through as well. So
are they? And I don't mean to put shadow over them or anything, but are they creating something what the Crusaders have created? And what I'm trying to say there is that they get a player, and I look at a guy like Angus Tarvell. I was with Angus for a long, long time. I watched him. I could see the potential in him, but for some reason it didn't blossom right in the Blues environment. He's gone down to the Chiefs. He's become an All Black. He's become one of the best tight-head players around the field in the world, I would say. Scrummaging, he's still getting better and better. He's now showing his true light in terms of the person he is. I mean, to me, it's about creating people as well, this Chiefs element does.
And they've created depth, all right, and that's something that you need to call on. You mentioned the Crusaders. Let's shift our attention to them. And I don't know how much time we need to spend on the Crusaders, to be honest with you. They're a dynasty. They've been a dynasty. They're going for a three-peat, Cully. But in the end, are they similar but just better at it?
Yeah, I mean, they are just ruthless. And as you say, talking about recruiting, they get guys early and they persevere with them. Yeah, they're a tough nut to crack down there. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you go and play them, if they're at their best, you have to be at your best to beat them. And not many teams can do that down there. I mean, obviously, they've got a new coach in there with Razor there, and he's changed.
Well, he's taken them to another level, hasn't he?
With his
to that next level.
Coaching style compared to probably who was there before. But, I mean, it's working.
But I suppose you talk about recruitment, and to me, from what I see, they do it slightly differently to the Chiefs. But what they do is you've got to think about, you've got Braden Ennor, who we know is going to be a good footballer, and you've got to think about Jack Goodhue. You know, that's a guy from Auckland, a guy from Northland that should be playing for the Blues. But what they do, because they've been so successful,
it's a pathway.
Young players do think, well, if I go down there, I'll be successful as well. And I know we're not talking about the Blues, but that's what the Blues will need to change. You know, because at the moment, the Crusaders are the flagship and people want to play for them. You know what I mean?
And they tend to take their time introducing players as well as the fact that they build their game. They get into a level where they're well and truly prepared and ready so that they're not destined to fail, Ali. They're not throwing them in the deep end. It does help that they have quality around them. But I look at that side of it and the fact there are not many players that go to Christchurch and fail.
After my experience down there, it's hard. When you look at something from afar, you think you know, and then you go down there and sometimes it almost becomes even blurrier because you're right in the coalface. But I look at two elements, I think. One is their leadership. If you go through the Crusaders era, a dynasty, they've had solid leaders the whole way along. You look at the Chiefs, as we just talked about, they're creating solid leaders all the way along. So, to me, it's the leadership. They take it on the field and off the field. And then it's the simplicity in terms of what they try and get you to do. Just do your job. I don't care what type of person you are, what type of man, what type of person you want to be. When you're on that field, you're playing for each other and you're playing for yourself. And they keep it so simple. And it's just working, mate. Okay. It is just working.
OK, so those two teams, we've seen the formula. Is it the same in Wellington? What is it about the Hurricanes that have all of a sudden, and it does help that you have so many dynamic players, but when did their franchise become that contender, finally get their Super Rugby title, Cully, and then every year the conversation seems to involve them? Yeah,
well, that was the hard thing with the Hurricanes was the consistency. You know, until they won it. And now they've got, a guy like James Blackwell, he's played every game, just the workhorses, the grunt, the guys you don't really see, not the superstars. I think you need guys like that in that team. There's a number of players in that team also that have played over 100 Super Rugby caps, and you need that. So I think the mixture is pretty good at the moment. We've seen in the weekend against the Blues with the young guys coming through, and Plums is doing really well there, bringing young guys into the fold.
Isn't it vastly different, though? We're talking about... It seems as though they are all different environments. There's so much of it, then, about getting what Cully's talking about, Batesy, getting the right people to fit the environment.
Getting the right people to fit the environment, but also, and you talked about Angus earlier on, But what you've also got to realise is when those people come into the environment, they've got to understand what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in this environment. And I would imagine without being in that environment, that's something John Plumtree is very good at. He would demand high standards.
So I'd say up until 3 weeks ago, we weren't sure. Then they went on tour. They went away, they went to South Africa. And I think, for me, those 2 performances away showed the actual class that they had because they needed those performances. They were at full strength. Barrett plays in one of those games. They needed to prove that they can compete at the highest level. I think, for me, this is when it showed me they're dangerous now.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, the Hurricanes is the one team that you could still look back and you could still put Cully in there now, you could put Tunner in there. In terms of your identity is still very much where it was when you started. You've got extraordinary individual talent. I think collectively you've still got your, I wouldn't say the word battlers, but your hard-nosed players, you know. I mean, Dion Waller, Paul the Fish. I mean, those guys, remember coming
Tito,
up... Tito, you come up against those guys,
Tito.
you're going, holy heck. And they've still got those types of players. But what I would say is the one bit that's changed is the professionalism towards these young guys to say, oh, hold on, I'm not going to throw that pass or I'm not going to do that. I'm going to guts it out and we're going to get a try. Or, no, we're just going to kick some points. We're going to kick some points. We're going to win. So, to me, it's that evolution of the individual professional game that's helping the Hurricanes.
It sounds to me you're talking about leadership.
Yeah. Well, you know, the other thing I was thinking about just then was Mark Hammett. As much as people didn't really like what he did, he set a line in the sand and he said, this is what it is. If you're not on it, or you're not on this side, then you're gone. And he did that. He got rid of some icons of high-profile Hurricane players. And I think that's almost maybe where that kind of started.
I would say this, though, Batesy, they are strong in some pretty key areas. Hooker's not so bad. TJ Perenara, Bowden Barrett, and then you've got the likes of a Geordie Barrett. Like, you talk about the spine of your team, and then they've always managed to find someone step up, and we've seen the level that Ardie Savea has taken his game to this year. So you talk about leadership, and once again, the players, just their key players, continue to get better.
Yeah, they do. But yeah, as you mentioned, they do have a very, very good spine. But in saying that, you know, you still got to perform week in, week out, and that's something that they have done this year really well. A little bit like the Chiefs, they have scrapped and they have battled to just hang on to games and win ugly. It's all right to win ugly sometimes, you know, and to just get the job done, you know. So, you know, you can have superstars, but you've got to scrap sometimes.
Is this season vastly different to last season? Because it was all flash. Ben Lamb was scoring, I think he scored 11, 12, 13 tries. It hasn't been as easy. Does that prepare them better for what's come on the back end of the season?
Well, I mean, I like how they went to Africa and they had to really fight over there, like big physical battles. So we talk about momentum coming back and that some of their top guys not playing against the Blues. I don't think that's an issue at all. So I like too that they haven't played that way well through the middle of the season, but won games. I mean, I'd rather them do that than be on fire and then come to this end and peter out.
Because you know when you go down, well, if they win and the Crusaders win, you know when you go down to Christchurch, the Crusaders aren't going to give you 50 opportunities to kick back to you and play razzle-dazzle. It's going to be a grind. They've had to get into the grind this year.
I think what you can say is the playoffs have got vastly different for the Crusaders in 1 week. And their first challenge on Friday night at Orange Theory Stadium in Christchurch, it's the Highlanders. They go down there. Now, we talked last week about who would be the most disappointed if they didn't make it. And it was the Highlanders, and we're going, yes. But they found a way on the back of bonus points. A lot of the games that they lost were very, very close. They were right there. They have snuck in. But if you talk about them for a long time, and I can talk from watching this franchise, they were the team that was picking up the extras, the dregs, the guys that weren't quite wanted. Then they picked up a couple of key guys, Aaron Smith, Lema Sopawanga, and then Ben Smith started to really come into his own. And they've built around that Cully, and they've become that franchise that now it's like every year they don't overperform, they perform to their potential.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity for some of those guys that didn't get it elsewhere. And you go, once again, I think it's standards as well in a lot of these franchises you go to. There's a standard, and if you don't abide by it, and I know down there, well, you've been there, that if you're not on it.
But it's interesting, though, but it's still different. The Bushshoots are on, you know, they seem to really enjoy what they're doing. You've got Joe Wheeler out there doing whatever he likes to keep people entertained. You've got the Zoo. Maybe they've managed to reconnect with their students once again, and maybe, obviously, a stadium with a roof on it has helped.
Yeah, it definitely helped. I think the environment around the city can really bring in your... I mean, I look at Malakai Fekitoa. He went down there, huge talent in Auckland, you get him down there, you take away the distractions, and you get him in a smaller community, and he's focusing on rugby. And man, it's changed the man. Like, it changed the man. It didn't just change the rugby player, it changed the man. And so I look at the Highlanders as a team, and you say, this ability to create this do-or-die attitude within yourselves. I don't care your talent, mate. Just get out there and give me everything you've got, and that's what they do. And now what's happened is you've got superstars in that team now who are giving it everything, and they're making huge differences. I mean, Elliott, Dixon, you've got the likes of Liam Squire. These guys are playing and challenging the best in the world.
But I'm glad you brought up Liam Squire, because you've got to remember, Liam Squire's a Chief. So we've talked about the Chiefs, how well they do things.
Well, Sakanahola was a Blue, though. But there's a lot of guys
But that's what I'm saying, though, is that it didn't work for him in the Chiefs for whatever reason. I don't know why it didn't work, and the Chiefs do things very well, but it didn't work for him at the Chiefs. He went down to the Highlanders, and whatever they've done, maybe it's that he gets to go pig hunting once a week or something like that. It doesn't matter what it is to get your players working. Yeah. Whatever they've done for him, look at what kind of player he is.
And I love the discussion we've had, because it means the formula is not the same for everybody. So all of a sudden, you're going to get the best out of the individual. It's just a matter of finding the right opportunity for the player. We've got plenty more to discuss after the break. Don't go away.
Stick around. Still to come, it's time to say sayonara to the Sunwolves, and can anyone stop a Crusader three-peat?
Yeah, tries. I mean, I used to like the ones where, you know, I remember scoring a try against the Brumbies over there.
Straight through is Eremia. Full back to beat Kafer. Eremia. Caught by Kafer, and Cullen got the pass.
You know, at the buzzer, and that's just sort of the stuff that, you know, Michael Jordan, you know, at the buzzer, and still remember now, you know, Alama breaking through, then there's an offload, and, you know, the siren goes, we go score, and we win the game. You know, just little things, little things like that, scoring at sort of last minute.
Yeah, there it is, Christian Cullen. That's an exclusive doco with us. There is the greats of Super Rugby. Cully, outstanding. 1 hour of your highlight. An hour of your highlights. You talked through every single one of them?
On the first one, it's 20 years ago. It's hard to remember, to be honest with you.
You run that one again,
I can't remember last week.
We've all been a victim of a Christian Cullen try. Have you been a victim of it?
Me? Never.
Yeah, never.
No, never went round me.
Only me then. Only me. Brilliant. Looking forward to watching that. Make sure you check it out. Time now for extra time, where we get our opportunity to look at something around the game, have a rant and a rave. And I tell you what, who's going to go first? Let's go. There it is. It's Batesy. It's you.
Yeah, well, for me, I just really enjoyed it. As I said, you could almost say they're the form side going into the playoffs. I know there's the Crusaders, but the Chiefs, and the way they've all of a sudden, this is one of them here, the way they've sort of got their click plays going. And when I mean their click plays, I mean the work that they've done off their turnovers. You know, they've created plenty of turnovers in recent weeks and kicked the ball away, but now they're starting to find space, and when they get in the line, just the ability to keep the ball alive. He should have passed that one. But to keep the ball alive.
Are we buying or selling this, boys? Are we buying or selling it? Come on. Are we buying what he's saying or what?
No, I agree, yeah. I agree that the ability to score tries and, you know, just turn it on the turnover.
They're going to need to, because they're going to going to Buenos Aires to take on the Jaguares. They're going to need to score points. They can do that, though. For you, Kelly.
Oh, I'm with the Hurricane Young Guns. I was quite worried against the Blues in the weekend, to be fair. You know, Garden Bishop, 20-odd years old, Tuala, 20-odd years old, Umanga Jensen, midfield, Salesi Rasi on the wing, all 20. And they just stood up. The worry just went away in that second half, and it was great to see. The future is bright in the Wellington midfield, I feel. I mean, Matty Proctor's off at the end of this year, so to see Umanga Jensen there wearing his uncle's number 13 jersey, who was running the water for the Blues.
The irony
is emotional.
Yeah. Mate, there's some greats on the sideline there. Some absolute greats. All right, I think it's time now to say sayonara to the Sunwolves. Yes, they have been a great addition of Super Rugby. Their focus was on getting themselves prepared for a 2019 Rugby World Cup. We know that they're heading away in 2021. I think maybe it's time for them to go a year earlier. I think, for me, the fact that they've already decided that their premier competition in Japan is going to run to middle of May. Who's going to be available for the Sunwolves in 2020? It's not going to be a competitive side. I don't think this is a game Super Rugby needs, and it's time to move on. And move on very, very quickly. I've had enough.
You're booking them early, Goldie,
I'm booking them early.
1 year early.
I'm booking them early. All right, that's my rant on that. Ellie, for you.
Well, you know, as a loyal Crusader fan, I mean, to me, it's the three-peat. I mean, if any team can go three-peat, it's the Crusaders, I think. I mean, you look at it, we talk about the dynasty, the legacy that we're talking about. We talk about their rock stars, their flair and Razor. And, you know, can they do it again? Can they lift that trophy and, you know, send people like Kieran Reid?
So
and
in less
the
than
likes
60 minutes, you've gone from being with the Blues to the Crusaders.
As I've always said, I can be... Just pick which one it is. Sometimes I don't know which side, but I'm always going to be one or
and
one
Steph,
or the other.
I think that is entirely unfair. They are your Crusaders.
They're mine. You haven't said one good thing about the Crusaders the whole time I've been on this show.
Oh, my gosh. Is there a parrot in my ear? I've been blowing steam up the Crusaders for so long.
Oh, get off it. Anyway, in social media news this week, we have found this meme, which is Chiefs in the first half of the season versus the second half. Look, doesn't really matter how they did it. They got there in the end, didn't they?
I think everyone prefers the one on the right, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's pretty good. That's outstanding. I love it. Thanks, Steph. Not a lot happening in the social media.
No,
everyone's hunkering down, gentlemen. I tell you what, this is great, though. This is fantastic, isn't it, for Super Rugby? What we've got, quarterfinals coming up. Are you excited for what's in front of us?
Yeah, I am. I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually looking forward to the Chiefs going over and dusting up the Jaguares, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'm with you. For me, that's almost the match of the round, you know. They're two form sides going at it.
I'm with you on that, Kelly.
You are so wrong. It's the Highlanders going into Christchurch, taking on the Crusaders, a local derby in the South Island. That is us. It's a fantastic week. We've got so much coming up this weekend on Thursday as well. We shouldn't forget kickoff with Kirsty. We are going to be there. Ali's going to be there as well on Friday night down in Christchurch. These two in Wellington. Izzy as well. What a weekend that's in front of us. Make sure you join us. The quarterfinals of Super Rugby.
You ain't seen nothing like this. Come on and give me some more. We're gonna shake the floor, bust down the door. You ain't seen nothing like this. Give me some more. We're gonna settle the score. Spread my wings and soar. You ain't seen nothing like this. You ain't seen nothing like this.